for the Honorable Member, Mr. Zulfikar Mustapha, Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this piece of important legislation that have been brought to the House by the Attorney General. And Mr. Speaker, we remember the first address to this Parliament by His Excellency the President. He made it very clear that his government will spare no effort to ensure that never in our history of our great nation will there be dishonesty which took place during those elections be allowed to repeat it. And Mr. Speaker, we are hearing tonight about impersonation. We are hearing tonight about all kinds of skullduggery that took place in the last election. And I want to just address a few concerns that were raised by Honorable Member Kemaraj Ramjatan and some of his colleagues. Mr. Speaker, first of all, there were 2,239 polling stations across this country. We in the People's Progressive Party Civic received 2,239 statements of poll signed by all the agents who were represented political parties, including the APNU AFC. And there was not one single case where there was any objection about impersonation. And today, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, after 2 years, we are hearing senior member of the APNU AFC coming to this Parliament accusing their polling agent of being part and parcel of impersonation. That is the thanks they are giving to their polling agents. Mr. Speaker, as stated by the Attorney General, we have a mechanism at these polling stations where a voter enters polling station, his ID is being examined against the folio to certify that that's the person. Then they are being taken to the other election official, check all the other particulars, and then given a ballot to be voted. The polling agents is then given the ID card to check if that is the correct person that have voted when they're coming out of the polling station. And I am telling you this evening that there was not a single case that the APNU AFC polling agent object to in the 2020 general and regional election. So I don't know what kind of report the honorable member is talking about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and then the honorable member come here this evening talking about residency, when that matter was heard in the court and the Chief Justice ruled that residency is not a requirement for registration. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution provides that Commonwealth citizens living in Guyana for 1 year, they are qualified to be a voter and register on the voter roll. And the APNU AFC wants to deny the people who born in Guyana their constitutional right to vote in our country. We in the People's Progressive Party respect the Constitution. Remember, just during your term in office, 18 names were submitted by the leader of the opposition to pick a chairman of the Elections Commission, and you all went outside of that and picked an illegal chairman that had to go to the CCJ, and the CCJ ruled that that was unconstitutional action by the government. So the APNU AFC used, and they know how to flout this constitution. You heard the honorable member was talking just now about the Esther Pereira matter. You agree, you came to the Parliament. You agree that they need a voter ID card. And when they lose the election, when they lost the election, they went to the court and take that matter that they never agreed to it. unanimously. So those are the kind of events that are associated with the APNU AFC. And then we heard the honorable member he just left, Honorable Rysdale Ford, said that in this act, there are mechanism and regime that is self-serving. Up to now, I am waiting to hear one of it that is self-serving. One of it. He never mentioned just rabble-rouse and talk about impersonation, talk about division of regions 3, 4, and 6, talk about residency, and those things. Never went into this document and highlight one clause or one section that is against or that will put the election in dispute. This here will strengthen the process. And I will go and highlight some of the issues that we had in the 2020 election and the issues that were condoned by the APNUAFC, who gave official in GCOM, who gave their encouragement to flout the Constitution and disenfranchise thousands of Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the ROPA that we had before this act is totally silent on actions that have been taken by GCOM Secretariat without any legal cover whatsoever. Further, Mr. Speaker, there have been clear cases where provision of the ROPA has been deliberately observed in the breach. Example, ascertaining the vote cast for each list of candidates by the District 4 returning officer. And we know what took place. We know how many names, how many voters, or how many votes were put to cast aside by the Chief Election Officer. Another glaring example, Mr. Speaker, is the transmission of statement of poll from polling station to returning officer, and returning officers opening the designated envelope containing statement of poll. Mr. Speaker, it is as a result of the undertaking given by the President during his inaugural address that we are here today to debate the identified crucial legislative requirement which all members, if they are concerned with free, fair, and transparent election, will support in this honorable House here tonight. Against this, Mr. Speaker, I will now deal with some specific issues that happened in the last election. Statement of poll, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is public fact that the Guyana Elections Commission, and if our memory is short, let us listen, declare that fake statement of poll for the 2015 general and regional election had found its way into the GCOM system. Yep. We all remember that. Mr. Speaker, we in the PPP Civic are not aware of any effort that GCOM made to investigate how this occurred and who was responsible. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, GCOM itself has never since then even attempted to put legal procedure in place to prevent any recurrence. And the 2015 election saw the APNU AFC accede to government. And you never had an interest to investigate and say where was the statement of poll, the fake statement of poll came from, how it went into the system. We had Honorable Member Robson Ben talk about the 21 boxes that we asked for in 2015 to be recounted. It was never given us. But at that time, the APNU AFC, after 2 years, you can show your statement of poll in the 2020 election. But just after 2 days in the 2015 election, you had your statement of poll. Walking about with it, say you won the elections in 2015. Mr. Speaker, in this bill, you will find a comprehensive set of proposed measures which are aimed specifically at preventing manipulation of the statement of poll, as was done in 2015. With the approval of this bill, legislation will be provided for the serial numbering of statement of poll forms in similar manner as the case with the ballot paper. Mr. Speaker, we have proposed in this bill that the templates for the statement of poll forms, like ballot paper, must be encrypted and sent by email to overseas printer. Because there was a lot of these things going with people to the printer by themselves to be printed, with the relevant established technical and security instructions to prevent the template from falling into the wrong hands. What took place in 2015. Mr. Speaker, depending on the number of parties contesting the election, only the required number of copies of statements of poll forms plus 5% must be printed. And that is in this ROPA. Also, Mr. Speaker, depending on the number of parties contesting the election, only the required number of statements of poll form must be given to the presiding officer in charge of the respective polling station. Those are measures that will strengthen our election system in this country. But I didn't heard any one of you mention these measures. Mr. Speaker, in this bill also, we have proposed that all extra statements of poll form must be kept in a secure custody of the respective returning officers. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, statement of poll forms that may be requested as a result of damage must be provided by the returning officer via the relevant deputy returning officer. The damaged statement of poll forms must be returned to the returning officer before the replacements are uplifted. And all those are here. If you go through and you read all the clauses. And I want to commend the Attorney General and the consultation that took place. You had your chance. You came here and you walked out and left without making a contribution. Mr. Speaker, there will now be legal provision for all used and unused statement of poll form to be accounted for by the POs and the returning officer respectively. This will be done on a statement of poll account form similar to the ballot paper account form and will be used in the same manner as the ballot paper account form. Mr. Speaker, party agents will at all times be involved in the procedure pertaining to receipt, storage, allocation, usage, and accounting for statement of poll forms, as in the case of ballot paper and other sensitive material. To ensure that there are no fake statement of poll, and to ensure that such an illegality never occurs again, we have proposed that these safeguards, which no member of any political party or civil society grouping should find objectable. Mr. Speaker, you recall that the APNUAFC praises the manner in which the election was conducted in March of 2020. They claimed victory and they said that the election was free, fair, and transparent. And if you go back on the record, you'll see the former Attorney General was praising the election in his vehicle, saying that the election was free and fair and transparent. They won the election. Very shortly after the election day, the coalition has declared that they have won the election. But that claim was a falsehood, and thereafter, we all became aware of the APNUAFC, the rigmarole that took place up to August 2020 to prevent the real result of those elections from being officially declared. Mr. Speaker, during the CARICOM team supervised recount of the ballot, we began hearing accusation of the PPPC that the PPPC had rigged the elections by somehow falsifying voting by dead people and by persons who were overseas on election day. And they have made that claim just now. No report was received from any contesting party on election day that any such malpractice has taken place. The only way something like that could have happened was if the party agent for the APNUAFC was sleeping or left the polling station. And they claim that they have polling agent at all the polling stations. And we have statement of poll signed by their polling agents. It is for this specific reason, Mr. Speaker, and to ensure that party agents are always present at containers to witness to the movement of ballot boxes, and admin bags for containers to the polling station, this bill proposes the appointment and accreditation of alternate polling agents for every single polling station. So every single polling station now will have a polling agent and an alternate polling agent. Mr. Speaker, this proposed safeguard seeks to ensure that contesting political parties have the right to appoint 2 polling agents to each polling station to alternately, as might be necessary, observe all polling day activities, commencing with the movement of the ballot boxes on the morning of election day from their point of storage right up to the delivery of all statement of poll to the respective returning officer. I don't want to go into the division of Region 3, 4, and 6. The AG and other members have dealt with those, and I think this will help us because we remember, and I think Honorable Member Sanjeev Dattadin would have alluded to the fact that the returning officer for Region 4 fake heart attack, then you had people move away with the flash drive, and a number of other issues. This will help us to conduct the election in a more manageable way, and the results will be in more forthcoming. Mr. Speaker, it is also proposed that each of the 4 sub-districts be managed by the supernumerary returning officer charged with the tabulation of the election result for the respective sub-district. Mr. Speaker, in recognition of the numerous loopholes within the process, counting of the votes at the polling station, transmission of the statement of poll from respective polling station to returning officer, and tabulation of vote cast by returning officer, we have made provision in this legislation to safeguard all those processes. This bill proposes a regime of safeguards which are all aimed at making the procedure more robust, as well as eliminating all existing room for manipulation for different motives. One such safeguard, Mr. Speaker, will be the mandatory requirement for returning officer to make adequate provision for all persons who are authorized to be there to witness the tabulation of the result using the actual statement of poll, while the progressive tabulation will be displayed on a screen for the benefit of all concerned. So as Honorable Member Sanjeev said, there will be no more need for spreadsheet and bedsheet arrangement. Mr. Speaker, in recognition to the security checks and balances which currently exist in the ROPA, this bill proposes a series of step-by-step procedure intended to strengthen the above-listed procedure and guarantee the integrity of the result of the elections, which are tabulated by the returning officer. Mr. Speaker, transparency is one of the hallmarks among the established international standard for the conduct of election. However, Mr. Speaker, apparently this was not done by the former chief election officer, who refused to show the copy of the statement of poll, given the manner in which District 4 returning officer did his tabulation and made falsified declaration of the result. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the former GCOM CEO made his own tabulation, which varied considerably from the result declared by the returning officer, and still refused to show the statement of poll which he have got in his figure. Then, Mr. Speaker, we heard excuses like the CEO is the lawful custodian of the statement of poll, and that he is not obliged to show them to anyone. It took a court order from the Chief Justice to instruct the CEO to release his copies of the statement of poll. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we cannot go forward in this scenario, where the laws or lack thereof would allow any GCOM CEO to withhold a copy of the statement of poll for the entire country. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, to avoid what transpired in 2020, this bill proposes the introduction of legislation which will make it mandatory for the Chief Election Officer to publish all statements of poll by district as he receives them. Further, Mr. Speaker, the bill proposes that the CEO will now be specifically authorized to ascertain the result of the election by adding up the result received from the returning officer of the 10 electoral district, which he will be legally required to submit to the Commission for ratification and declaration. Mr. Speaker, these measures are here to strengthen our electoral process. And it's very sad that we are here today to pass this legislation to make our electoral laws more strong, to strengthen the process, and the opposition has just left the chamber. It is very sad because we know for a fact they are not interested in the democracy of our country. From 1964 to 1985, we have had rigged election in our country. From 1992 to 2015, elections were certified as free and fair. And in 2020, we had yet an attempt to rig the election. This here, Mr. Speaker, will help us to never in the history of our country allow another rigged election to take place. With this, Mr. Speaker, I support this legislation. I want to commend it to the House. Thank you very much.